Who else here was a LEGO stop motion enjoyer back in the day? For a couple of years, maybe from like 2009 to 11, these videos were all I watched. I feel like a lot of people can agree that the brick film scene now isn't the same as it used to be back then. And no, I'm not that type of guy who just complains about everything right now and just wants to go back to the good old days. I just want to make this video to like point out what made this special. What made this video stand out from the other YouTube videos back then was the fact that they were almost like cartoons, freely available in near infinite amounts. And because of LEGO's licenses, there were brick films made of all kinds of franchises, from Star Wars to Batman to Indiana Jones. And sometimes they would cross paths in crossover episodes. It's my underdeveloped brain, well, it's still underdeveloped, but even more underdeveloped brain back then just couldn't comprehend. But there's another reason it stood out from the ordinary cartoons. Normal cartoons had like a whole team working on them, like a studio with big budgets. It might sound like a plus, and in many ways it is, but the homemade LEGO films felt a lot more pure. They weren't thinking about their target audience or possibly their episodes taken off the air, or they weren't thinking about the children. No, they got the idea and they got to work. When you watch these videos, you can be sure that you're witnessing some dudes unadulterated ideas. This is artistic expression in every sense of the word. Even though the overall quality was lower than it's now, the animation was still pretty smooth. Something about seeing a minifigure walking is just so satisfying to me. Anyone who knows the work and patience required to do this, with no doubt agree that it's satisfying. It wasn't just fun when watching the work of others, but also when you got to put your skills and most importantly, your patience to the test and make your own LEGO animation. Yeah, doing this as a 7-year-old taught me a fair amount about using cameras, computers and video editing. Though most of my projects I would abandon in the editing stage, I still have a fair amount left from that time. Clearly not on the same level as the other videos. It's not that I couldn't make this any better back then, it's just that when you're a kid you wanna see the end result as fast as possible, yet you end up cutting a corner every step of the way. I just couldn't comprehend like sitting down to like write a script. I don't know if other people did this, but I just went with the vibes, and oftentimes it would leave me to like a dead end where I had no idea how to continue, because there would be some kind of inevitable plot hole, and that would be really frustrating. Most frustrating thing would be when the LEGO guy's legs would be so loose that you couldn't like get him to stand. Especially when you're doing the walk cycle and one of his legs is like up. So there's like this unbalance and also there's less grip on the platform and just keeps falling down. That would drive me nuts, bro. One time I got so angry I just threw the figure at the closet door and it came out the closet now. The hand split in half. That was devastating. Also like watching the ones I made is such a nice way to get a like glimpse on how I was thinking back then. But let's go back to the other guys' films. Watching this years later is so nice. Like every time you see something you remember, it's like a light bulb goes in your head. It sure feels good to remember things that were buried deep in your brain. I can even remember what I was like thinking when I was watching them back then. Even like 14 years ago. Like watching these videos is so inspiring. Like I got the similar inspiration to make them back in 2011 that I'm getting right now as I like watch these videos for research purposes. It's crazy. Like nothing makes me wanna create as much as watching these brick films. Yeah, where was I? Another reason why I think it was the golden age of brick films is because the audience was better. Let me explain. Back then people were more willing to like sit through original stories. Now people are much more willing to just watch brick films about trends, memes, adaptations or something similar, and most often in short form. You can also see this with movies. Like just look at the blockbusters coming this year and how many of them actually write off something already popular and how many of them can you call original. This is simply because there is so much entertainment out there and the competition is getting pretty tight, and thus the bar for LEGO stop motion videos has been set super high. That makes it harder for the average Joe to make a brick film that will do super well. By the way, the reason I didn't pick early 2000s is because early 2000s didn't have YouTube. Even though a lot of classic LEGO animations on YouTube are like actually made in early 2000s and then like re-uploaded to YouTube later. The fact that YouTube was such a mainstream platform, LEGO stop motions got a whole new audience that didn't even know about LEGO animations prior to that. For me, these videos were my first introduction to things like YouTube, video editing, and of course, violence. Looking back, I feel like we were witnessing something special, something that will not be repeated ever again.